All right, let's talk about church hurt. Now, just even saying that, some of you immediately are leaning in saying, yes, I've got that. But the very notion of putting those two words together, church hurt, is one of the biggest oxymorons that ever was. Really, the church should be the place that we go to get healed, but we have people that are coming out of the church because they were hurt there, and they're looking for healing outside of the church. And essentially, they're looking for healing outside of Jesus, which is really the painful part as we look at it. Now, today's guest, his name is Shane McDonald, and he is a licensed mental health counselor. We met him at the American Association of Christian Counselors. And when he told us his story, he used to be a pastor in ministry, and today he's working in the therapy world. And really, he said something that fascinated us. He said that 90% of the people that he's working with, they have experienced some level of church hurt. And then he threw something else out there. He said there's a difference between hurt and injury. And we just kind of sat there with our jaws on the floor. So take this in. Shane McDonald is a guy that has a lot of wisdom, and I think that you're going to enjoy hearing his story. Hey, welcome to the Life After Ministry podcast. Today, Noe and I are actually in Nashville, Tennessee at the American Association of Christian Counselors. Noe, say hey.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
There you go. And we are sitting with a very good-looking man, and his name is Shane McDonald. Shane, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we got to meet you here at the conference, and you shared a little bit of your story. And it's a story of going into ministry, it's a story of coming out of ministry, and it's a story that you're still in ministry. But let's go all the way back to the front end of that conversation. You were in ministry as a youth pastor.
Absolutely. So in 2008, my journey started working with youth. At that time, the person who I credit to discipling me was a youth pastor, and he pretty much gave me the responsibility to be in youth pastor to the middle school age kids, and then eventually he kind of stepped into another position or role. And in 2010, I took over as the youth pastor, both middle school and high school.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, we call those the ankle biters or the linoleum lizards. It's a special gift and burden and blessing that
Lots
you get.
of pizza parties.
Yeah, pizza parties fun. I love it, just being able to minister to the youth. And it was a unique circumstance because it was part of like a newer church plant, and our youth ministry just kind of really bloomed. I really outgrew the church. So but much of that was with you that were unchurched kids. So that was like a unique experience for me and a lot of my mentors at the time who had a lot of church kids or kids that grew up in church.
Right.
So I started attracting a lot of unchurched kids and just started having a real heart and passion to getting into their homes and ministering to the parents. And from there, kind of birthed the heart for counseling individuals and working and kind of sitting down with parents and students and student athletes and so forth.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much of pastoring is really just counseling and being people in the midst of painful, hard situations.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're not doing that anymore?
Nope.
No more pizza parties, just at home?
No more pizza party, yeah.
So what was that factor that kind of pulled you out of doing vocational ministry as a youth pastor?
Yeah, so I was full-time youth pastoring from 2010 to 2015. At that time, I was working on my bachelor's. And that was more in like social services. I knew I wanted to be in a helping profession. I honestly thought that youth ministry was my life. Like if anyone told me at that time, like, oh, it's a stepping stone for senior pastor. And I had so many people like, you're going to be a senior pastor. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be a youth pastor for the rest of my life. Because I was so passionate with the youth and everything. But 2015 came after I graduated with my bachelor's. And I started to feel the call to go work on my master's. So the main thing for me in that time, I remember in 2014, 15, when I was really contemplating, even with my wife, long-term like career, even though I always thought it would be in ministry, inside like the four walls that is like church, I really started feeling called more to the clinical world because I saw such a need of it when it came to working with youth and their parents, even in the unchurched world of things. So that's why I started contemplating, do I go pastoral counseling or do I go and get my degree in clinical counseling? And that's kind of where I started contemplating that.
What was the transition like coming out of the church? Did you just say, hey, I'm done, I'm out? How did the church treat you, love you coming out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I definitely had certain expectations put on me as far as like being as, one day a senior pastor. Like I said, I think the youth pastor position or role is usually thought of as that stepping stone. So it was challenging at first because I had, some mentors that was like, no, whatever you feel led to call, to do, that's important, to really think about it, pray about it. Then I had, other mentors or even congregation members that felt, no, you need to stay in the four walls. Don't go out there in the clinical world. It's crazy. It's a mess. So that really created a lot of challenges and like conflicting, interests for me, particularly because at that time was pretty much like a full-time youth pastor at that time. So pretty much, one thing I encourage, that I found on my journey is there's a difference from going into, whether it's the helping profession, medical profession, corporate America, whatever the case may be. And particularly when you're in ministry, there's a difference from going to one of those different professions and being sent. And that's where I really drew the line of feeling like, no, God is sending me into the clinical practice and integrating spiritual wisdom and Christian truths and things that really, amongst my colleagues from whether it's secular colleges or whatnot, don't really have that holistic approach. They say holistic, but, the spirituality component to it is left out a lot of times. So I felt sent, and I encourage, if you're contemplating, it could be an engineer, construction, I don't care what it is. You're not really leaving ministry. You're just being sent to a different ministry or capacity to engage with people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, no, it's great. And then you can still be true to the different parts of who you are. You can still include your spirituality and your love of God, and but also do this new thing that you wanted to do, more clinical and psychological helping.
Yeah, absolutely. So even in the clinical world, I see it still as a ministry. God's called me to. I'm connecting with people that if I stayed in ministry or inside the four walls of ministry, I would never have the opportunity to really connect to. Or maybe those in ministry doesn't have the opportunity to sit with and connect to. I get that opportunity, right? And it's challenging at times being, even as a clinician or as a clinical therapist. I am a Christian, but I do journey with believers and unbelievers alike. But whether I share the gospel overtly, meaning, out and openly to a believer, or covertly, a lot of times in sessions, just, administering God's grace, love, kindness. I've seen God, even in sessions, save people who did not want to be saved and really come around and just experiencing his kindness, even not really being talked about God, this is the gospel. And then maybe, a month or two later after a consult where it was like, I don't want to talk spirituality. And then, 2 months or 3 months later, there's so many clients that come in, I went to church this week. And, so sometimes I see it as a way to, really bridge the gap and help people grow mentally, emotionally, physically, but then it piques their interest spiritually, right? So that's been an exciting part of my journey in the clinical world.
It sounds a lot like Jesus and the Gospels, and both reaching the people that believe and then reaching the ones that are doubting or that aren't in the church, and Jesus did both.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the question we ask a lot of times on here is there life after ministry? And undoubtedly, yes. We say, is it any good? Yeah. And it seems like it is. You're doing really well. And we even ask, is there ministry after ministry? Yeah. What do you say to somebody who is in a place where you were not in a place, even though you were with junior hires, you were not struggling. You were enjoying it. You felt a calling. But God was calling you to something else. How does somebody who is in that place, whatever place on the spectrum of ministry is miserable for them right now and they need to get out because it's toxic or they're not feeling called, so they're really enjoying it like you. How do you gauge that discernment? What do you tell somebody in that spot?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I think of again, going back to my own personal journey, I think, as you kind of put aside your own selfish desires and needs, because there was a little pride and ego for me where it's like, oh, here I'm accepted, I have significance. Now I'm going into a world that, much of the titles of the respected thing. Yeah, so you're starting from the bottom pretty much. But I think taking delight in just that journey is important. And you would know because, for me, I started growing a desire And once I started growing that desire and seeing that, I'm not necessarily leaving ministry, but this is just another capacity of doing ministry, that translated into like this personal responsibility, where it's like, I am devoting my time to my master's degree, and I had to step away from youth ministry. And it really was encouraging for me. And yes, support is important and mentors and, in that way. But I think it's more of a, desire. You have to grow that translates to responsibility of asserting what you want or what you feel God is leading you or sending you to. And I think that is very, very important, because if you put the responsibility on others to tell you or give you permission, that can be challenging, at times too. And that can create, church hurt. Again, like 90%, not even 90, probably 95% of Christian clients I work with in the clinical world are coming to me because of church hurt.
Whoa, say that again. Is that real?
Yeah, that is absolutely real. So I didn't grow up in church. I actually got saved in 2007. I was 21 years old at the time. And when I started, in church and pastoring, or, a lot of the unchurched kids' parents were once, grew up in church and they experienced church hurt, things like that. Now, these kids never been in church. I'm talking like I was working with kids that was 12, 14, 15 and never been to church. So when I started getting into the clinical world and I started attract, because I do advertise as a Christian therapist. That's what I am. So when I started attracting a lot of clients that was leaving, church or pastoral counseling and things like that, a lot of it because of past church hurt. And I am not exaggerating when I say this, at least nine out of 10 Christians, if they've been in church long enough, experience some form of church hurt. And I think that, for me, ministry-wise in that setting, it's how can I help them heal of that, but also reconcile with the local body. Like that's a big thing to me, rather than discourage them from ever going back and don't partake. Like, no, how can I help you mature mentally, emotionally, spiritually, where you can go and get back involved, even in the church that may have hurt you. Sometimes it's worth going back and reconciling for the sake of community. But you're stronger now, right? It's like things that hurted me then won't hurt me no more. It's just a part of, being part of a family, right? And in family, you hurt feelings, right? My wife hurt my feelings. Sometimes I hurt hers. My kids, hurt is hurt. You're going to get that no matter where you go, whether it's in church or whether it's in corporate America, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Emmaus Road. They were hurting. They just lost their friend, their Savior.
Come on.
And Jesus shows up and walks with them, but they don't know that Jesus is walking with them.
Right.
And in a way, you're still getting to do ministry, and you're walking with people that are hurting, broken, even Christians that have felt distance from God themselves.
Yeah,
and that the term that comes to mind too is, it seems like for you, is it a sacred place? It sounds like a very sacred place.
So that is really important to me, to cultivate a safe space, but where it's sacred for them to be as vulnerable and as genuine as they can be in their thoughts and feelings. And that's really important to me, even as a Christian therapist. Even with like my personal local body, I do a lot of what I call pastoral counseling. And I kind of separate them from clinical with, Christian men and couples. And really, with the clinical, it's so sacred to me because it's like, here's a place or a person you can sit with that I'm not trying to do life on life with you, right? We're not going to go hang out. We're going to, get your wife and we're going to go and enjoy dinner. So this is a place where you can just be raw and open and honest. If you mad, be mad. If you sad, be sad. Use whatever language you need to use to express. And then we can heal and work through, because you don't get to do that outside that space where you're not offending people or people getting defensive and then you just don't feel heard. Yeah. And then, or people spiritualize away your problems. No, you're blessed and highly favored. It's like, no, if you don't feel like, let's talk about that,
Wow.
I want to hang out with you. Dinner? Man, it's so good. You have such depth. And I feel like I should know more. I should know better than to I'm shocked by the statistic that there's so many people. And I'm almost thinking to myself, well, man, if the church is hurting so many people, we shouldn't let people go to church. But then I thought for a second also, people are coming out of family systems and their family's hurting them, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't be a part of family.
Right.
And we love, we're big church lovers. We love the church. We want to see her be radiant like Jesus calls her to be. And we know that that's how the story ends. But man, that road from where we're at now to where we need to be, I love the reconciliation. I love the work that you're doing it's really calling those who've left back home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because like you said, we get hurt in family all the time, but we don't forsake, Thanksgiving or holiday days or celebrating each other. That at some point we understand we're just family and we got to work through this. And that's an important part of my ministry in the clinical world, and particularly with Christians, is to make them feel safe again, but then they go back and be able to take what they learn in their maturity and really, love their leaders and love leaders, but also love and kind of look for the same church hurts that it's just hurt. I think for me, I separate hurt and injury. So what people call church hurt is literally that. It's just hurt, meaning you need to find a way to work through that. My son plays sports. I love sports. And I have a lot of student and professional athletes too as clients. And one thing I told my son when he started playing football, you're going to get hurt. That could be your finger stepped on. You could get a cut, an owie, turf burn. You're going to get hurt. When you get hurt, you better not come out the game. Because it's like, no, that's where toughness and character is built, right? Because, again, it's football. Whether you play basketball, you're going to get an elbow. That's hurt. You got to learn to play through that. Because in life, you're going to get hurt. In marriage, you're going to get your feelings hurt. You got to learn to play through that. Injuries is different. And heal, yes. Injuries are different. When you're injured, if you're dizzy, if you sprained your ankle, if you break a arm, you got to get out the game.
It's a timeout.
It don't make you bigger or better because I'm in there and playing with a sprained ankle. No. Or I'm dizzy. You may got a concussion, get out the game. You don't need permission to get out to heal of that. So what I find from my experience, especially not being brought up in the church, is a lot of people leave for church hurt, and it's you got to go back and reconcile like that. If that hurt was that painful, yes, you need to heal of it. Yes, you need to maybe learn, confrontational skills and things like that. But you got to get back in there and you got to learn to heal and work through that because you're going to get that no matter where you go. If you're there long enough, you're going to experience hurt. Now, injury is different. And I've, sat with a lot of clients that's been injured. I mean, very toxic leadership situations.
Abuse
even spiritual abuse or spiritual manipulation. And, I couldn't ever do an anniversary because my pastor said that'd be defiant to him, and you need to be here for this conference, even though it fell on just things that are just very toxic. And when it's injuring, you got to get out. You just got to get out. It don't make you bigger or better because you're loyal to something that's very toxic or a toxic person or leader. But I think a lot of times it's just hurt. That's why I say a majority of clients experience. But there is, a percentage of clients, and this is just my percentage of what I see. There's about 10% of clients, 9 out of 10 clients, one of them may have experienced some injury, like a very toxic, sexual traumas in the church and things like that. You got to get out. That's not safe to even go back and reconcile. Yes, you need to forgive, but you don't have to go back and reconcile, with someone that, cause injuries to you in that way. So, does that make sense? The separation.
Dude, I'm sitting and learning, and I feel like I had a great session here for myself. These are gold nuggets. Thank
Shane
you.
McDonald, if somebody wants to connect with you and find you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so they can reach me on my website. It's at ShaneMMcDonald.com. Shane M, meaning Michael, McDonald.com. I also could be reached at my email at counseling@ShaneMMcDonald.com. And I'm located in Orlando, Florida. I'm a licensed mental health therapist in Florida, but I also do a lot of life coaching, emotional IQ coaching, leadership building across the nation.
And we'll put all that in the notes. And so if you're interested, I know I want to talk to him again.
This is great. We might need a part 2.
Yeah, it's good. Well, thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here and for the good work that you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thank y'all both.
Yeah, bless you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life After Ministry podcast. If you are navigating a ministry transition or you're in a ministry leadership role and you see a change on the horizon, the worst thing you could do is do this alone. We have 2 Facebook groups that are designed just for you. One is called Life After Ministry, and it's a group that offers community and support for those who are in transition. The other one is called the Elder Hub, and it's a resource center for ministry leaders. These communities are designed to give you insight, advice, and answers for your questions. We also have pastoraltransitions.com, and there you'll find articles on everything from messaging transition from the pulpit to what does it actually look like to become a community known by our love in every season. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast. Your support helps us extend our reach and communicate this message. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Shalom.